Hi, welcome to Starz Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain a French comedy drama movie titled The Intouchables, which was released in 2011. Spoiler alert, watch out and stay sharp. The movie opens with Driss driving his employer, Philippe, through the streets of Paris late at night. When sitting in traffic gets too boring, Driss starts speeding, weaving through cars and ignoring traffic signs. This gets the attention of the police, and Driss bets 100 euros that he can outrun them. But after passing under a bridge, the cops catch up and box him in from both sides. Driss doesn't seem too worried, though. This time, he bets 200 euros that he can get them an escort. The police order him out of the car, and Driss begins acting, pretending to be offended and telling them that Philippe is unable to move and he's rushing him to the hospital. The officers find proof when they spot the wheelchair in the trunk. As they approach Philippe, they see him convulsing, also part of the act. Believing it's a medical emergency, the police let Driss off the hook for speeding and offer to escort them to the hospital. Once they reach their destination and the cops take off, he shares a smoke with Philippe. Driss tells Philippe he's got it under control and drives off just before the hospital staff can catch up with them. This unlikely friendship actually began months earlier. Philippe and his assistant Magali are interviewing candidates for a new caregiver, but the process isn't going well. Every applicant gives dull or awkward answers to their questions. Suddenly, Driss barges in, ignoring the order of interviews. He's only there to get a form signed confirming he wasn't hired so he can continue receiving unemployment benefits. He's blunt, a little rude, and even flirts with Magali. But Philippe finds him entertaining and tells him to come back the next day for the signed papers. Driss returns to his modest neighborhood and tries to take a bath, but his younger siblings constantly interrupt him. He only manages to finish thanks to his older sister, Mina, who's more mature and responsible than the others. While waiting for their mom to get home, he looks out the window and sees his brother Adama getting out of a sketchy car. When Adama walks into the apartment, he claims he was just at school, grabs his bag, and quickly heads out again, making Driss even more suspicious. That evening, their mom comes home, and Driss gives her a Fabergé egg he stole, claiming he's just been on vacation. She's not happy to see him. After disappearing for 6 months without a word, he suddenly shows up like her house is a hotel. Fed up with his lies and focused on raising her other kids, she kicks him out and tells him not to come back. Driss spends the night hanging out with some friends from the neighborhood, sharing a smoke and some snacks. The next day, he returns to Philippe's home to pick up the paperwork. He's greeted by the housekeeper, Yvonne, who gives him a tour of the house, explains Philippe's daily routine, and even shows him the room he'd get, complete with a private bathroom. Driss can't help staring at the bathtub before being taken to see Philippe, who hands him the signed paper, but also offers him a job. Driss agrees to a 1-month trial, and Philippe bets he won't even last 2 weeks. After moving his stuff into his room, Driss begins learning how to care for Philippe. He's taught how to keep Philippe's legs stimulated, how to transfer him into his wheelchair, and how to help him shower and change clothes. Things get awkward when Driss finds out he has to put on Philippe's compression stockings and even clean him after he uses the bathroom. Despite all his complaints and insistence that he won't do it, he eventually accepts it as part of the job. Later that evening, while Driss is enjoying a snack on the rooftop, he gets interrupted by Philippe's daughter, Elisa, and her boyfriend, Bastien, who are looking for a quiet spot to hook up. Driss kicks them out after refusing to share his beer. He quickly settles into the daily routine, even though he makes a few early mistakes, like handing the phone to Philippe instead of holding it to his ear, or forgetting the baby monitor while taking a bath. He also learns to sort Philippe's mail into folders. Most of it he reads to him, but there's a series of private letters Driss is not allowed to open. When he comes across a flyer advertising female escorts, instead of throwing it away like Philippe instructed, Driss starts a special folder just for those. It's not all work, though. Driss still finds time for fun. He keeps trying, unsuccessfully, to flirt with Magali and sometimes invites escorts over. One morning, Yvonne comes to his room to scold him for being late, and she notices some dangerous-looking weapons in his bag, though she says nothing about it at the time. That day, Driss is supposed to drive Philippe around. He refuses to put him in the back of a van like he's cargo, and instead picks one of the fancy cars that rarely get used. Philippe initially protests, saying they should be practical, but soon gets excited about the faster, more thrilling ride, though Yvonne remains disapproving. As they try to leave the building, a neighbor has blocked the entrance, ignoring the no parking sign. Driss doesn't hesitate. He grabs the man by the front of his shirt and threatens him until he moves his car. Philippe is impressed, but as usual, Yvonne isn't thrilled. They visit a museum where Philippe is thinking about buying a piece of modern art. Driss thinks it's a waste of money. It looks like nothing more than a red blotch on a canvas. Afterward, Philippe meets with a relative who says everyone is concerned about Driss. They've found out he has a criminal record and warn Philippe that he could be dangerous. But Philippe doesn't care. He likes Driss because he treats him like a regular person and isn't afraid to joke around. That night, after another failed attempt at flirting with Magali, Driss has dinner in the kitchen with Yvonne while Philippe dictates a letter to Magali. Saying it's a private matter, Yvonne switches off the baby monitor and fills Driss in. Philippe has been exchanging letters with a woman named Eleanor. That's who the private letters are from. They've never met in person. Their entire relationship is through written correspondence. Still on the subject of romance, Driss teases Yvonne about the way the gardener keeps looking at her, then heads to bed. As he's trying to fall asleep, strange sounds come through the baby monitor. Philippe is having trouble breathing. Though he hesitates at first, Driss can't ignore it. He rushes to Philippe's room and gently calms him down, wiping his face with a wet cloth and speaking softly until he relaxes and falls asleep. Moments later, Philippe wakes up again and says he needs some air. This time, Driss doesn't hesitate. He gets Philippe into his wheelchair, wraps him in blankets, and takes him for a stroll along the river. It's the first time Philippe has seen Paris at night in a long while. Now, more relaxed, he tells Driss that the medication only helps so much. He still suffers from phantom pain sometimes. When a group of girls walks by, Philippe admits that he can't physically please a woman due to his condition. Still, he says he can feel pleasure when someone massages his ears. They're one of his most sensitive spots. As the phantom pain starts to creep in again, Driss offers him a joint. Philippe's skeptical at first, but ends up loving it. Afterward, they head to a restaurant, joking around and enjoying a meal. Philippe opens up even more about his past. He met his wife back when they were students. Not long after they got married, she suffered 5 miscarriages and was diagnosed with a terminal illness that couldn't be cured. That's when they decided to adopt Elisa. Philippe has always had a passion for competition, extreme sports, and speed. Paragliding gave him all of that. But during one flight, bad weather hit. He crashed and broke his vertebrae. Still, Philippe says the wheelchair isn't his real handicap. Living without his wife is. After they share some more laughs, Philippe suddenly realizes that Driss has made it past the 1-month trial. He's officially hired. But there's one thing he needs to do first: return the Fabergé egg he stole. It was a gift from his late wife. She used to give him one each year. He has exactly 25 of them, one for every year they spent together. The next day, Driss goes to see Mina as she's leaving school. She's upset. He's been ignoring her messages, except the one where he asked her to find the egg. She also tells him that some cops have been calling the house. Later, Driss visits Adama, who admits he was caught with 30 grams on him. Driss offers to take him out for lunch, but Adama declines and hops into the same shady-looking car from before. Back at Philippe's house, Driss sits in as Philippe dictates a letter to Eleanor for Magali to type. Driss finds all the poetic language boring and thinks Philippe should be more direct. He's also surprised to learn Philippe and Eleanor have been writing for 6 months without ever exchanging photos. When Driss spots her phone number on one of the letters, he takes it as a sign and calls her, forcing Philippe to finally talk to her directly, not just through writing. The conversation goes so well that Philippe can't stop calling her, even right before he and Driss attend the opera, where Driss can't help but laugh at the costumes and poke fun at the whole thing. The next day, Driss talks Philippe into sending a picture to Eleanor and chooses one of him in his wheelchair. Later, while Driss is painting, Elisa barges into his room to ask for cigarettes and teases him about trying to be artistic. Annoyed, he kicks her out and heads off to find Philippe, who's just asked Yvonne to swap the photo Driss chose for one of him taken before he became quadriplegic. She hides the photo inside the escort folder just before Driss bursts in, ranting about Elisa and telling Philippe that she needs some discipline, something Yvonne agrees with. Philippe says he'll talk to her, but he's more surprised when Driss accidentally mentions that he's been painting. Time goes by, and Driss and Philippe grow even closer as friends. Driss takes Philippe out to play in the snow and even brings him along on his runs. Philippe buys Driss his first suit and later scolds his daughter while Driss secretly listens in through the baby monitor. When Driss finishes his first painting, he shows it to Magali, who slaps him when he tries to kiss her. But Philippe actually likes the painting and promises to try and sell it for him. The two have a blast hanging out, riding in faster cars, sharing joints, and even hiring escorts together. When Philippe's birthday rolls around, he isn't exactly thrilled about it. Every year he fakes surprise for the party and ends up spending time with relatives who only show up to make sure he's still alive. He expects it to be boring. While the guests enjoy a live classical music performance, Driss goes looking for Elisa and finds her crying in her room. She'd taken some of Yvonne's pills, not enough to be fatal though. She's upset because Bastien dumped her and called her a tart. She asks Driss to talk to him and he agrees, if she pays up. Meanwhile, Philippe shows Driss's painting to a relative and successfully convinces him to buy it for 11,000 euros. Back in the dining room, Driss chats with Yvonne, who tells him that Magali is dating someone named Fred, but things aren't going well between them, giving Driss some hope. As the party winds down, Philippe tries to share some of the most iconic classical music pieces with Driss, but Driss just jokes around in response. Once the band wraps up, Driss takes out his iPod and blasts Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind, Fire, then starts dancing in the middle of the floor. He's an amazing dancer and even gets the rest of the party to join in, much to Philippe's amusement. Later that night, as he's putting Philippe to bed, Driss opens Eleanor's latest letter. She included a picture, she's beautiful, and suggests they meet up next week when she's in Paris. When the big day arrives, Yvonne and Driss help Philippe try on dozens of outfits until they land on the perfect one. Since Yvonne is the one taking Philippe to the date, Driss uses his day off to visit Bastien. He intimidates the boy into agreeing to apologize to Elisa, bring her croissants every morning, and even fix his hair. After that, Driss stops by his mother's workplace, but only to watch her from a distance. At the restaurant, Yvonne and Philippe are waiting for Eleanor, who is running late. After an hour of waiting, Philippe gives up, calls Driss to pick him up, and leaves, unaware that Eleanor is arriving at that very moment. That same night, Philippe surprises Driss by taking him up in his private jet and giving him the money from the painting sale. Driss is overjoyed. The next morning, they arrive in the countryside where Philippe decides to go paragliding and drags Driss along. Driss is terrified at first and wants nothing to do with it, but ends up loving the experience. When they return home, Adama is waiting for Driss and gets scolded when Driss sees the scars on his face. Still, Adama refuses to say what's going on in his life, so Driss tells him to wait in his room, calls Mina to reassure her, and goes off to put Philippe to bed. Philippe, however, isn't sleepy yet. After making Driss look at a painting with him, he asks about his family. At first, Driss doesn't want to talk about it, but eventually he opens up. It turns out Adama isn't technically his brother, and his parents aren't actually his parents. They're his aunt and uncle. They brought him over from Senegal when he was 8 because they couldn't have kids. His real name is Bakary Bassari, but since other kids had that name, they called him Idris, which eventually became Driss. One day his aunt miraculously got pregnant, and after his uncle passed away, there were other men and more kids in the family. Just like Driss had talked to Philippe about Elisa, Philippe points out that Adama needs some discipline. Then he fires Driss so he can be with his family. He says he can't spend his whole life taking care of an old man. The next morning, after Bastien brings Elisa her daily croissant, now sporting a better haircut, Driss packs his bags to leave. Magali comes by to say goodbye, and when Driss tries to hit on her one last time, Magali introduces him to her partner, Fred, short for Frederic. It turns out Magali isn't interested in men, so Driss gives up right then and there. On his way out, he returns the baby monitor to Yvonne and teases her for lying about Magali just to mess with him. In return, Yvonne hands him the escort folder he had started, and he's disappointed to find the picture he chose hidden inside. Driss throws the folder away, but keeps the photo for himself. Once outside, he finds a car blocking the entrance again, so he asks the driver to move, even though he no longer works there. When Adama calls him out on it, Driss says it's a matter of principle. A few hours later, the two brothers pick up their mother at the station. Meanwhile, back at Philippe's house, the new caretaker is having his first dinner with Philippe, but he's stuffy and boring, so Philippe leaves without even taking a bite. Since Yvonne is out on a date with the gardener, nobody's around to scold him. As the days go by, Driss slips back into his old life. He hangs out with his old friends again and tells the guys in the suspicious car to stop bothering Adama. When he lands an interview for a job he isn't qualified for, he wins over the employer by calling himself pragmatic and using all the art knowledge he gained while working for Philippe. That lands him a job as a driver. Felipe continues to dislike his new caretaker and stays in a bad mood. One night, he refuses help for his phantom pain, so Yvonne calls Driss and asks him to come over. That's how they end up in the same situation as before, with the cops chasing them at first and then escorting them to the hospital. After that little adventure, Driss drives Philippe to the coast, and the sight of the ocean helps Felipe relax. Sometime later, Driss trims Philippe's overgrown beard before taking him to a restaurant for lunch, but he doesn't stay because someone else will be keeping Philippe company today. Driss wishes him luck and finally returns the Fabergé egg before leaving. Philippe starts to worry about being alone until he sees who his date is, Eleonore, who's happy to see him and doesn't mind the wheelchair at all. The real Count Philippe Pozzo di Borgo now lives in Morocco. He's remarried and has 2 daughters. The real Driss, whose full name is Abdel Yasmin Salo, runs his own business and is married with 3 kids. The 2 men remain very close friends to this day. That's my explanation of the movie, The Intouchables. So, guys, what do you think of the movie? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thanks for watching.